You know that incredibly relatable, honestly almost tragic phenomenon that happens in basically every workplace or community group?
Oh, yeah, I think I know exactly where you're going with this.
Right. Like you have this one person and they are the most empathetic, kind, genuinely caring individual you know.
The one who's always listening to everyone's problems.
Exactly. Always mediating the conflicts, making sure people feel seen. And because they're so wonderful with people, naturally they get promoted to a leadership role.
Makes total sense on paper.
It does, but then suddenly a year later, it's like their brain has been hijacked.
Yeah, completely rewired.
They turn into this disconnected, schedule-obsessed micromanager who doesn't seem to have 5 minutes to actually look you in the eye anymore. It's wild.
It really is.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're figuring out what actually happened to that person's brain. And we're looking at why gaining power literally rewires our biology to destroy the exact empathy that got us promoted in the first place.
It's a profound shift. And, it's something humans have been trying to articulate for thousands of years.
Thousands of years, yeah.
Right. So to explore this, we're synthesizing two very different perspectives that point to the exact same truth. We're looking at Henri Nouwen's reflections on the spiritual costs of leadership.
From his 1989 work, In the Name of Jesus.
Exactly. And we are layering that directly over modern behavioral science, specifically psychologist Dietrich Keltner's research in his book, The Power Paradox.
So Nguyen warns us about this spiritually, but centuries before neurologists started seeing this exact empathy drain in brain scans, we already had a foundational story about it.
We did.
Because to understand why being in charge is so inherently dangerous to our humanity, we're actually starting with a narrative from the first century.
Yeah, this entire discussion really anchors itself in the biblical account of the third temptation of Jesus. You find it in the Gospel of Matthew.
Right.
It's just a profoundly stark narrative about the very nature of power.
Let me set the scene for you real quick, because even if you aren't religious, the psychological archetype here is just massive.
Oh, absolutely.
So Jesus is out in the wilderness, he's fasting, he's exhausted, and the devil presents him with this ultimate sweeping vision.
The kingdoms of the world.
Yes, the narrative says he has shown all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor, and essentially he's offered the keys to all of it.
Which is a huge deal.
Right. In a first century context, we are talking about the absolute peak of human dominance. Rome, military might, endless wealth. It's an offer of unquestioned authority.
Total visibility.
Exactly. Absolute influence over everything and everyone.
And, the focal point of this narrative is the choice that follows.
Right.
Faced with the opportunity to take absolute control, to basically rule and fix the world through global domination, he rejects it completely.
Just walks away from it.
Yeah. Instead, he chooses worship, obedience, and what Nguyen beautifully calls the vulnerable path of love. He explicitly refuses to take control or dominate.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here, pun totally intended.
Go for it.
I struggle with this a bit because we literally live in a culture that rewards the exact opposite.
We really do.
Like, we take courses on how to maximize our influence. We're told every single day to build our personal brand, to take charge of our lives and our industries.
Is the default setting.
Right. And if I don't step up and take charge, someone with worse intentions probably will. So why is taking charge framed as a dark temptation? Are we supposed to just be passive?
Well, see, no one says it's not about passivity at all. He points out that this story isn't just for religious elites or historical figures.
Okay.
It is a central temptation for every single one of us. Because we all long, in big or small ways, to simply be in charge of our lives.
I mean, yeah, nobody wants to feel out of control.
Exactly. But the danger lies in the desire to dominate rather than relate.
Dominate rather than relate.
Right. The temptation of power is that it offers us a highly efficient shortcut.
Okay, what do you mean by a shortcut?
Well, it is infinitely easier to control a situation or manage a person as a data point than it is to engage in the messy, inefficient work of actually relating to them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
When we dominate, we remove the friction of other people's free will. We don't have to listen anymore.
So power makes us dominate and, isolate ourselves. But wait, that totally contradicts how we get promoted in the first place.
Which is the crazy part.
Usually you get put in charge because you're good with people, not because you're a dominator. You get the promotion because you have high emotional intelligence.
And this is exactly where Dietrich Keltner's research comes in. Because he provides the empirical data that backs up Nguyen's spiritual warning perfectly.
Yeah, his concept of the power paradox completely blew my mind.
It really bridges the gap between ancient theology and modern neuroscience. The paradox he observed in the lab is based on this friction.
Between how people get influence versus what biologically happens to their brains once they get it.
Right, because his research shows that people typically gain power by displaying empathy, kindness, and generosity.
They advance because they listen well and mediate conflicts.
And here's the tragic irony in his findings. Once those people actually feel powerful, an internal shift happens.
A physical shift?
Yes, a neurological shift. They literally lose the biological capacity for empathy. They start paying less attention, they listen less carefully, and they become highly self-focused.
I was trying to visualize what is actually happening in the brain here, and I came up with an analogy for you. Tell me if this tracks with the science.
Let's hear it.
It's like putting on a pair of really expensive noise-canceling headphones.
Okay.
You put them on because you've been given a lot of responsibility and you want to concentrate on your important work.
Right, you're trying to focus.
Exactly. But as a result, you completely lose the ability to hear the people sitting right next to you who might be asking for help. Power basically dulls our sensitivity.
That's a great analogy for describing the outward symptoms, like the fact that you stop hearing people. But it misses the actual underlying cause.
Holy.
Because you choose to put headphones on.
Oh.
Keltner's research shows that power is much more like an anesthetic that you don't even realize you've been given.
Wait, really? It's completely involuntary.
Completely involuntary. When we are lower on the social hierarchy, our brains are hyper-tuned to read facial expressions because our survival depends on group cohesion.
So our mirror neurons are working overtime.
Exactly. But Keltner found that when the brain perceives it has gained power, it subconsciously calculates that it no longer needs others for survival.
Wow.
So the prefrontal cortex, the empathy center, literally quiets down.
So it's like a biological energy-saving mode?
Basically, yeah. Keltner actually noted that subjects who feel powerful suffer from a neurological deficit that mimics a traumatic brain injury.
A brain injury? That is terrifying.
I know. If you smile at them, their brain doesn't automatically trigger the muscles to smile back.
Oh, man.
There's this famous experiment he did. They brought groups of 3 people into a lab, randomly assigned one to be the leader, and gave the group a plate of 4 cookies.
4 cookies for 3 people. Sounds like a trap.
It was. And the leader almost always took the 4th cookie.
Of course they did.
But not just that. They ate with their mouths open and left crumbs everywhere.
Wait, they literally ate with their mouths open. They just lost their basic social inhibition.
Entirely. Because the physiological empathy centers were shutting down. The most striking line from Keltner's work synthesizes this perfectly.
What's the line?
He says, the very power that was granted because of care for others starts to erode that care.
The very power that was granted because of care starts to erode that care. That is just wow.
We literally stop seeing the people standing right in front of us.
Because it's a biological anesthetic, which explains why it sneaks up on us. I mean, nobody wakes up, looks in the mirror, and decides, today I'm going to let my mirror neurons atrophy and become a power-hungry monster.
No, it happens beneath our conscious awareness. And this brings us back to what Noah calls the spiritual terrain.
Right.
He's clear that this shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow creep. It happens through many small choices where we prefer control over relationship.
Let's break down the specific real-world examples no one gives, because they show how universal this is across different roles.
Yeah, they're brilliant examples.
The first one is a priest. He starts out with a genuine, burning heart for the core.
Motivated purely by compassion.
Exactly. But gradually, as he gets more administrative responsibility, he becomes completely obsessed with schedules, structures, and status.
The structures built to serve the poor become more important than the poor themselves.
Which is so tragic. Then the second example, this one really got to me.
The religious sister.
Yeah. She's initially known for deep, compassionate listening. Everyone goes to her. But as she gets more authority, that deep listening slowly morphs into what no one calls a quiet impatience.
A quiet impatience. That is a devastatingly precise description.
It really is. You can just feel what it's like to sit across from someone with that quiet impatience.
Oh, absolutely.
They're technically looking at you, but you see the tapping foot. You notice the slight sigh or the quick glance at the phone. You feel managed rather than heard.
Because to the power-altered brain, your emotional needs are suddenly perceived as an inefficiency.
Ugh. Yes. And his third example brings this right into the secular workplace.
The late person.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone who was once kind and universally available, but gradually becomes entirely consumed with productivity, income, and personal influence.
It's the same slow fade.
Now, I have to ask this for the listener's sake because my inner corporate worker is getting defensive.
Fair enough.
Does this mean Caring about schedules or wanting to be productive at work is inherently bad. Like, if I want to be productive, am I falling into this trap?
No, and that is a crucial distinction. The danger isn't the mere possession of power or productivity.
Okay, good.
The danger is allowing those things to replace compassion, presence, and dependence on God.
It's about what takes the center seat.
Exactly. When the schedule becomes more sacred than the person standing in front of you, the anesthetic of power has taken full effect.
Because relationship is never efficient.
Never. People have bad days, they need patience. Control is efficient, love is not.
Okay, so if our brains are chemically wired to lose empathy when we get power, and the default gravity of being in charge pulls us toward isolation and impatience, how do we fight that gravity?
Well, this brings the conversation full circle back to the alternative model from that opening story.
The Matthew 4 narrative in the desert.
Right. Faced with the offer to build a life on prestige and control, Jesus explicitly anchors himself elsewhere. He states, "Worship the Lord your God and serve only him."
He flips the whole concept.
Exactly. The ultimate takeaway here is that when God and not power is placed at the center of one's life, leadership reverts to being an act of service.
I love the contrast in the source material here. The devil offered the loud, visible kingdoms of the world.
The obvious markers of influence.
Right. But the alternative path turns ordinary life into a place of quiet, hidden influence through kindness. It's a total redefinition of true influence.
It really is. And to tie the spiritual and psychological threads together for you, fighting the power paradox requires intentionally choosing vulnerability and service over control.
So by serving, you maintain the very kindness that brings true influence.
Exactly. You force your empathy centers back online by choosing the inefficient friction of relationships.
Wow. Let's recap the incredible journey of this deep dive for you, the listener.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We went from the ancient desert temptations to the modern psychological traps of Keltner's power paradox.
Right.
We unpacked how the subtle desire to be in charge can slowly erode our empathy and how it replaces our relationships with a rigid need for control.
And remember, this happens in tiny increments. Those daily small choices between choosing control or choosing relationship in your own lives.
Whether that's at work, at home, or in your community.
It's everywhere.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today.
Something to really sit with.
Yeah. If power naturally dulls our sensitivity to others, and the antidote is hidden acts of kindness, what is one deliberate, small choice you can make today to intentionally relinquish control?
That's a great question.
Think about it. When no one is watching, what does your own quiet, hidden influence look like?